What's up, guys? If you're watching this, thank you, thank you, thank you. If you've watched any of my other videos, thank you. If you made it through that last video, thank you. If you've heard anything in any of these videos that you think anybody else might benefit from, feel free to share. I appreciate that. But I've watched that video a couple times, and I've come to so many different opinions about it. I've had a lot of feelings about it, good, bad, and indifferent. I could choose to be embarrassed by it, but I'm definitely not. Actually, quite the opposite, which is where I'm at today. And I feel like I've come, I don't really want to say full circle, because I don't really know what full circle exactly is or entails or looks like. And so what I've kind of come to at this point is that I am certainly uncertain about everything. Everything. And that's right where I'm okay with at this point. When we, and myself, included, I'm included in everything that I say, when we attach ourselves to outcomes of situations or have expectations about anything that we experience, we tend to sink into our own belief system about what it's going to feel like or what it should feel like or what is going to come of this or why this thing happened or why we're experiencing this. And we tend to get lost in that and stuck, really. And that's how I was feeling. I was feeling very stuck in a place of misunderstanding and hurt. But because I was allowing myself to stay stuck there, I kept reeling about, what I could have done differently. And again, by doing that, I was taking personal responsibility for someone else's decision that they made, whether it was about me or about them or about anything else. I had no business trying to figure out why someone else decided something. Because when I'm doing that, I am not paying attention to what I'm doing and what I'm thinking and where I'm at with my own understanding. And, life happens in moments, I understand. And each moment that happens, we have a choice to sink into trying to fully understand that before we allow ourselves to move on to the next moment, or just to run past this because we don't want to remember this moment or we don't want to feel the feelings that are coming from this. And so we just kind of like bulldoze through life or through our experiences or the experience that we're having at that time that we don't want to be having, just to get to a new one. But I'm learning that in order for me to feel peaceful, I want to be able to just kind of buoyantly float. And I've talked about this before. Resiliency is buoyancy. I just kind of want to buoyantly float through my own life's experiences, not allowing myself to anchor too deeply into one feeling or the next or one understanding or the next, because looking back at my life, which is what I've done a lot this week, trying to understand where all of this is coming from and doing all this inner child work, it has me understanding, that I'm constantly evolving, and evolution is change, and change is certain, right? That's the only, what I don't even know that quote. What is it? Change is consist, I don't know. You get it. Change is always happening. We can't resist it. And so when we allow ourselves to stick ourselves into something that we don't understand, and we just kind of, or for myself, I'll speak for myself, if I do that, I am missing out on everything else that's happening thereafter. And then what I'm doing is dragging that misunderstanding and the feelings that it's causing, which is shame, confusion, anger, hurt, sadness, rejection, all those awful feelings. I drag that shit with me into all of my new experiences and every new moment that happens without even recognizing it. And it just kind of taints everything that I'm experiencing now. And that's not doing myself a service as a human being experiencing life in this body, in this lifetime, on this planet. I am depriving myself of detaching from that moment and allowing myself to experience the joy of the moments that are continuing to happen for me, because life isn't stopping. And I know this sounds all fantastical and shit, but that's what this life is. It is fantastical. I don't want to get too lost in that sauce, because I will. But let me bring it back. So what this really taught me, this experience and watching that video multiple times and just allowing myself to kind of just be and just feel, I remembered who I am, and I have evolved into this person, and definitely not overnight. I used to be extremely quiet as a child. I didn't really have much to say. I was an observer. I was constantly reading. I just didn't have a desire to speak up about much. And as I grew and as I learned and as I experienced moment to moment, I got messy, real messy in my 20s. That was definitely a time of monumental change in my life. But for the simple fact that I was doing more than I ever did. And, moving away to college and allowing myself to experience that and all of the feelings and situations that it brought to me allowed me to evolve into this person that I am today, which I choose to believe is very strong-willed. I have a lot of convictions and I stand by them. I do feel like I'm a very brave person. I do not pull away from difficult conversations. I actually thoroughly enjoy them, because if it doesn't challenge you, it doesn't change you. And I've never really been one for just like those basic conversations about nothing, or about, gossip on TV or in the tabloids or just other people. Don't get me wrong, I'm not perfect. I do engage in those, but every time I do, I learn a little bit more about myself. So I'm understanding at this point that to be certainly uncertain about everything is exactly where I want to be. It doesn't allow me to sink too deeply into my own opinions and my own understanding at that point in my life, because if I do that, then I am cutting myself off from growth, because in the way that I don't allow other people's opinions or other experiences aside from my own to influence what I think or where I'm at or my perspective or anything like that. So I don't want to be too certain about anything. And if I'm uncertain or completely uncertain, I'm counting on others, or I'm allowing myself to sink into other people's perspectives and understandings, because I'm too uncertain about my own and I want to see what everybody else has to say about this, so that I can formulate my own decision and see where I would like to stand in my own experiences. And so I want to remain somewhere in between both of those, because I want to be certain about, some things, I guess. I don't know if I really want to say certain, but I like to believe certain things. Everybody has to have a belief system. You have to have a foundation of what you stand for, who you are. But I also don't want to be so uncertain that I don't have an opinion about anything, or I'm too afraid to voice my opinion about anything, because if somebody challenges me, then they can see right through me and I don't have, a thought to stand on or anything like that. And that's just not who I am at all. And so I realized that I was making a bigger deal out of it than I probably should have. And I was getting really mad at how I was handling the rejection. And so that again was another, lesson in the idea that if I'm getting mad at how I'm handling it, I'm not allowing myself to handle what's being given to me right now, because that moment was over and I was still reeling in it, and just trying to dive so deeply into it and dissect it so much that I didn't leave it alone, and it didn't leave me alone. I talked about it to so many people, and I woke up a lot of different days feeling that same feeling of defeat and being mad that it wasn't leaving me, but not recognizing that I wasn't leaving it alone. And I was so determined to understand why the hell that happened, that I was missing the evolution of every day. And, I know this sounds fantastical and shit, but that's what it is. And so I'm understanding that what I'd like to do from this as a result of this is to settle for little by little at a time, right? I used to say that all the time to clients. Days don't happen days at a time, they happen hours at a time. Hours don't happen hours at a time, they happen minutes and seconds at a time. Everything big is built of something small. And if I allow myself to settle for a little bit, and that's in terms of understanding and perspective. If I have a little bit, then I have enough, and I can go with that. I can grow with that, and I don't need to understand the entire big picture in order to be able to move away from that. And so that is exactly what my defense mechanism that I am so married to, of intellectualizing. That's where that comes from. My desire to understand. And I always thought to myself that that was a good thing, because it meant that I remained curious and I had a desire to know and to learn. But sometimes that's not helpful for me. And I'm slowly learning that right now. I do believe that I'm very intelligent, and I like to, I guess, display that or advertise that about myself, by speaking my own understanding about it to people. But that had me avoiding the feelings. The more that I talked about it to people, I was inadvertently trying to get their perspective to wash away mine, so that mine wasn't going to allow me to feel like this anymore, because mine was just it was just dragging me down. And I knew that if I talked about it to other people, I knew that they would not agree with my own detrimental understanding or depressed understanding. Not to say that I'm depressed, but depressive understanding of that situation. If I, talked about it to other people, they would try to pull me out of that. And I think that's what I was subconsciously doing. And the feeling wasn't leaving me alone. It was not evading me at all. It was following me and creeping up on me anytime that I wasn't talking about it to someone else and getting their opinion to kind of squash my own feeling about it. I hope this is making sense. But I am able to understand at this point that, the feelings are fleeting. I said something to myself last week, like, feelings are like flavors. We want the good ones and we want them all the time. And the bad or the nasty ones, we want to spit them out and we want to avoid them. And so then it kind of had me thinking about like dieting and healthy eating and juicing. I'm a big juicer, and they don't all taste good. And my palate actually had to evolve to accept these different tastes as being good. And a lot of people, when I talk to them about, eating healthy or juicing or whatever, they always do the same thing. Ugh, I hate that. I hate greens. I hate this. I hate that. It's disgusting. It tastes horrible. But that is what's helpful for us, or for me at least. I understand that not everything that's healthy for us is going to feel good and taste good. And so just allow ourselves to go with it, to feel it, to digest it, and with the intention that it's going to help us. And so to not pay too much attention to the taste or the feeling of that situation, and instead ask ourselves how we're going to evolve from this experience and what are we going to take with us, because nothing is happening for no reason. And the more that we try to just jump ship from these experiences that don't feel so great, the more we are avoiding our evolution. I think that's the understanding that I had come to in the last video, was I was, evading my evolution. I don't know what I even called it, but something like that. And so, my fear of uncomfortability, which is weird to say because I recognize that I can be uncomfortable in certain situations and not be fearful of it. And that's usually physical situations like working out or doing yoga. I understand that uncomfortable feeling is necessary for growth of any kind, mentally, emotionally, physically, muscularly. If it's not hurting you, you're really not hurting. I'm saying like burning. You fucking get it. It's not really changing you. You're not growing from it. It's like staying in that comfort zone, hoping that things are just going to sweep through and change. But understanding that change, uncomfortability is part of change. And it had me, that fear of uncomfortability that I was running from last week had me feeling and being very short-sighted about my opportunities to evolve, because I was not allowing myself to recognize how wrapped up I was allowing myself to get in the misunderstanding of the entire situation. And so I trying to pull away from that and allow myself to just float through these things and not attach too deeply to whatever it is I'm experiencing, because another moment's going to come and another moment's going to pass. And if I am so wrapped up in one or the other, it's got me blind. It definitely does. And then I wrote something here about how uncomfortable is the metamorphosis process. Think about that. A caterpillar literally digests itself when it makes a cocoon. If you've never seen it, it's pretty wild. But when they're done making the cocoon, there's like this little, looks like a dried up umbilical cord at the top of the cocoon, and that is literally their body that they just digested in order to form that cocoon. And it's just a little crusty dingleberry at the top of that cocoon that is their actual former body, their former physical body. And they are just guts inside of that cocoon until about a week later or so, it emerges as a completely different animal. Completely different. Think about a caterpillar versus a butterfly. We all know what happens there, but think about that for a second. It was like a little worm before, incapable of moving quickly, swiftly, anything like that, very vulnerable, into something that can fly, something that can travel great distances, something that can now reproduce, something that has a greater purpose. And in order to get to that state, it had to go through metamorphosis. And so think about if caterpillars refused metamorphosis. What would that be like? I don't really know. I should probably look into the benefit of butterflies like bees. I know that bees are very important for us, and I'm sure butterflies carry the same sort of importance as far as evolution of life is concerned. And can you imagine if a caterpillar refused metamorphosis because it was too afraid of the process? That's a lot to think about. it would, right, think about it. I'm kind of like looking out there at the milkweed and whatnot, and if there was too many caterpillars, there would be no more food left to eat. There usually isn't, because these caterpillars are savages with this food, these plants, and I actually have seen that where there's caterpillars left out there and the other ones have eaten all the food and there's none left for these, and so they just kind of have to die off because there's no more milkweed left. And that, that's the process of life. And so maybe that's something I can learn from, that when I don't feed into these things that don't serve me very well with where I'm at, that I can just kind of let them go, let them die off. And by doing that, the leaves will grow back, more butterflies will come and lay eggs on those leaves, and by the time those caterpillars hatch and need to eat, there is new growth. It's incredible how fast it grows back once the caterpillars have eaten all of the leaves off of the milkweed. I hope that made sense. I think it kind of made sense to me. I don't know. Sometimes I feel like I'm just like a video diary. It is, but y'all are welcome. That's the other part that I recognize, that as a person in, where I'm at today, I am so hard on myself with a lot of things, but I fail to recognize, so by sinking too far into that feeling of feeling defeated, I was failing to recognize how brave I am as a person. And because of what I'm doing, this right here, this whole Woke Anonymous thing, a lot of people don't understand it. I don't have a huge following right now, but that's okay. I do believe in my evolution. And I am literally documenting all of this so that you guys can as well see my evolution and maybe get some help in your own process of evolution. Understanding that it just doesn't happen overnight. I don't get to where I intend to be just by thinking about things. I've got to actually do it. And, not just because nobody's clapping doesn't mean that nobody's watching. I've said this to a couple people lately, and I need to remind myself of this, that this is my process, and I want to make sure that I am my own biggest fan throughout it, because if I'm not, who will be? If I'm not my own fan, then I certainly can't get any other fans, right? Or followers or supporters or whatever you want to call it. And so I have to believe in my own process, my own evolution. And that's exactly what this is me getting back in front of this time after time, not really sure where I'm going to go with it or how it's going to turn out, but committing to the process, to the metamorphosis of myself, not pulling away because it gets a little scary or it feels a little too vulnerable at times. It is what it is. And I want to remind myself how brave I am each time I do this, because I sweat like a dude, which is exactly what's happening right now. It is dripping down my arms when I do these things, because it's very scary for me. But at the same time, I feel very accomplished each one that I do, even if they don't always make sense, or I just kind of feel like that wasn't my best work. I still am proud of myself for getting out there and doing something, instead of just thinking about things. Because I do that with a lot of other things. I think about a lot of different things and I don't actually do those, and those things bother me. But I'm not going to allow this to be one of those things. And, hopefully I can look back years from now at these videos and see the process of my evolution and continue to be proud of it. What did I say here? Yeah, I feel like I guess I pretty much said most of the things that I took notes on. It's kind of all over the place, but I'm all over the place. life is all over the place, right? I don't know anybody that moves so linearly that nothing is ever out of place. That sounds pretty boring and predictable if you ask me, but that's just me. And so if you're not, no, I don't want to say if you're not. I want to say, I would encourage you, if you don't, have these types of conversations with people in your life other than like your best friend or your partner or something like that. Maybe just open up to somebody that's an acquaintance or even a stranger. I'm blessed to have the experience as a bartender. And, you know, the vulnerability that I allow myself to experience, I flat out told so many people about my experience because one, I was trying to hear myself, and two, I was trying to get their perspective to see, you know, how they relate or what they would say about it. And I realized that people were surprised that I was having this conversation with them because I don't know them from Adam, but I'm also not fulfilled by surface level conversations. I don't grow like that. I love what thinking critically does for me. And if I'm only allowing myself to listen into my own thoughts and think critically about my own shit from my own perspective, what am I really doing to benefit the rest of the world with my energy? That's kind of a selfish perspective to take, to just keep all this shit in. And a lot of us tend to do that because we don't want to be embarrassed or be talked about in a negative way or be looked at like they're crazy. But I actually revel in that idea that some people might think I'm nuts. It's cool with me because we all are a little nuts sometimes, but I think it's even more nuts to stay safely tucked into your own perspective and your own opinion and not allow yourself to be thrashed around by other people's ideas about what you're going through or to be uncomfortable. It doesn't build resiliency at all. And I am learning to remember who I am and why I do what I do, as far as challenge people and step directly into vulnerability. I am a completely open book, as you might be able to tell from these videos, from this actual channel that I made. This is literally like a video diary of my life. It's me starting a group therapy for humanity without having anybody in the group. And I'm just telling my story time after time with whatever I'm going through and putting my perspective on it. And, you know, hopefully if you watch this, you can get something out of it, or you can think critically about your own perspective and maybe make some changes and inch towards being a little bit more vulnerable, because if we're not vulnerable, we can't change. Things have to be vulnerable to be malleable, right? I don't think I really need to explain that very much, but I am grateful for my ability to be bravely vulnerable, and I will try to remind myself that being in that, it's most helpful for me to be certainly uncertain about everything. Otherwise, I am constantly defending myself against the opinions of others and perspectives of others that don't quite match mine. And I'm being, I don't even know the word. I'm searching hard for it and it's not coming to me. But just very one-sided about everything. And I'm not the only one in this world. And, you know, the people in my circle aren't the only people in my world. And so it only benefits me to remind myself of the strength in my vulnerability and desire to take other people's opinions on, whether I agree with them or not. That is my evolution. That is my process of evolution. I want to remain grateful for how I got here, why I'm here, and where I'm going. I hope this made sense. I don't even know. But if you watch this, thanks. And hopefully you're encouraged or inspired to have different conversations with people. Talk about different things. Talk about your evolution or your understanding or misunderstanding or lack of understanding of it. Talk about different things. Surprise people with what you talk about. You'd be surprised how your relationships change and how the conversations are maybe a little bit more fulfilling because it's not the same. Hey, how are you? Oh, good. Yeah, good. Okay. What's up lately? Nothing. Okay. Ask a question out of left field if you want to. But if you're not asking yourself those questions, you're probably not going to be able to engage in that conversation with anybody else. And so start asking yourself those types of questions first, and formulate your own opinion, answer your own questions. And then once you do that, challenge yourself to take someone else's on. I mean, again, when you do that, pay attention to how much you attach to it, right? That's what I had to learn, was I was allowing myself to feel based on someone else's perspective. I got my own, and that's what I'm in. And I will entertain others, but I do not need to attach to it. And I definitely don't need to attach to my own either, because that's continually evolving. How I am today is not how I was a year ago or 10 years ago. And so to be certainly uncertain about my evolution is what I'm getting at. I got there. Thanks.